Motion carries 6-0. That brings us up item number 1. Discuss ordinance 22-16 that created section 711-100, article 711, division 71, chapter 7, Lawton City Code 2015, by creating the requirement for business to operate in the city of Lawton and to discuss the associated fees for obtaining business licenses and to take action as the council deems necessary. Charlotte.
There we go. Can you hear me now? Okay. So the discussion for this actually started about a year ago now. We met with legal in February of last year because we were having some concerns about businesses that were not renewing in a timely manner for the existing businesses that we license. And so we had reached out to legal and had spoken with the prosecutor, and we had been told that we did not have language in the code that said if you have to have a license to run a business. And so therefore we couldn't write citations, and so our only throwback on that was for us to issue late fees. And the late fee was a percentage which I was told several years ago was not being processed correctly, so we had not been processing the late fee on that. So we drafted a code actually to come in March of last year for a $100 license fee for all general businesses in town. And it was pushed off until June when council was approving the budget because we were working on a collaborative document and we were all working on the fee schedule for improvements for the next fiscal year. So we didn't do the business license until June, and then we brought it before you guys in June. At the time that the previous community services director was giving the information, we were still under the impression that it was sat at $100. It wasn't until a few months later that we realized that someone had increased the amount to $115.
Okay, so council, what we're going to do here to follow the order is this is an opportunity to ask questions. Then we go to public comments, and then we make our comments. This is not the time for us to make our comments. I'll open with a few questions.
We do have a couple of recommendations. Do you want those now or after the comments?
Say that again, please.
We do have a couple of staff recommendations.
You have some recommendations now?
Yes, for the council to consider. I don't know if you want to hear them now or if you want to hear them after.
Well, I think we might as well hear them.
Okay, so our first recommendation is that we do a 90-day suspension of enforcement on this code section so that we can go back and look at the fees again and maybe do some rewrites if you guys direct us to or want that to happen. And then that way we can do a better job of getting it out to the public that this is a requirement. Yes,
Okay, thank you. I've got a few questions. First of all, I want to say, I don't know how this is working. Because it's all right? Okay, so the first thing I want to say, Charlotte, is I realize you're in a kind of a funny position because you took over midstream here, and you were not the one that made the presentation, and all I can do is ask you questions about that presentation. So it's kind of an awkward position, but I understand that. During the presentation, the presenter, who no longer works for the city, never brought up the background check. Now, what I'm hearing is that everybody, including people that have been in business for 40 years in Lawton, would have to have a background check. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the way that it is in the ordinance as one of the items that's required as part of the application. Sorry. And then, and so that was in the ordinance that you guys passed in June was a background check. We have a recommendation on that as well.
It's hard to get it all read. You just don't. And so we rely on the staff. I watched the video last night, and the background check was never brought up to discuss. The admin fee was never brought up, and I'm being told there's an admin fee on here.
So where the admin fee came from is in section 7-1-1-111 of our city code. It talks about if for some reason the license is not able to be issued, then we can refund except for a $10 admin fee. The previous community services director read that and, oh, we need to charge that on all of our business license and building permits, but I told my staff that it does not qualify for the building permits, it's only for the business licenses. And so that's where that fee came from.
Okay. The other thing in the presentation, the presenter said that Lawton was an anomaly for not doing this. Now, I got on the internet last night and I searched Broken Arrow, Norman, and Edmond, and I did not find that they had blanket business license. Now, I do understand that when you look things up on the internet, you don't always get the most accurate, or it's easy to miss something. But I could not find where we're an anomaly for not doing this. As a matter of fact, they all looked pretty much like we previously were, and like our website still looks. I could find nothing on our website about this. What's your understanding on that?
So it's my understanding, because when we did research, we could not find any other city in Oklahoma that had it. Now, I'm being told from outside sources that there are cities in other states that have it, but not in Oklahoma.
Joe Don?
I can attest that there are cities in Oklahoma that do this. City of Bartlesville is one that requires a general business license.
Okay, quiet.
They can't hear.
The city of Bartlesville does require a business license, and there are some others in the state that do this. Typically, I can say from past positions that I've held, when a company moves into a city, this is one of the things that they are asking for. Are there any requirements for business licenses? So, from my experience, there have been other this is something businesses that are moving into our community are looking for, to pay. But I know City of Bartlesville does one. I think their fee's only about a $40 fee. And there are, I'd have to look up some more specific ones. I think Glenpool does. Those are the two or three that come off the top of my head, because I have patterned this in other positions. I have patterned an ordinance very similar to this after the ordinances that were in these cities.
Okay, thank you. Okay. It sounds like we're probably not an anomaly, though.
I would not say we were an anomaly of not charging.
Okay, I think that's the questions I have now. Council, do you have questions?
I'll
Go ahead,
start.
Ms. Johnson.
Oh, go ahead,
okay, go
Arnica.
ahead.
If this fee is assessed, which I think, well, I'm not going to say what I think, but where does that money go? Where does it end up?
I believe it ends up in the general fund.
That's correct. That was calculated into the budget as part of the general fund.
Mr. Harris?
Number one, what constitutes a business? Is a paperboy a business?
So a paperboy works for a business. So like the Constitution would be considered the business, and the paperboy would be his employee. So, sorry, anybody that conducts business and takes in revenue or provides services within the city limits of Lawton would be considered a business.
So if the Girl Scouts are out selling, the mayor's Girl Scout cookie committee selling cookies?
No.
We need to be very clear on this.
Girl Scouts are a charitable organization, so that would not be considered a business.
Okay, gotcha. All right, good.
Councilman Harris, we're principally talking about registered business entities, registered and non-registered.
I understand that, but I've had a lot of calls about that, and that exact same question. If I have multiple businesses but at one location, do I have to have multiple licenses?
It would be licensed under the location, and then we would just want a list of businesses that operate out of that location.
Okay, so if I have multiple businesses, multiple locations?
It's multiple licenses.
Okay. What was the original intent for a background check?
Just to verify safety for our citizens, so that we've got, if there's certain felonies that are not allowed to operate per state law, you know, they can't own a gun shop, or they can't have a daycare right next to a sex offender or something like that. That's really what it is to check on. And it's conducted by LPD, so it's not an all-inclusive background check. I'm not entirely sure where LPD searches, but I don't believe they go national.
So Oklahoma X-Rays owner gets a background check, but the 50 people working for him don't?
Correct. We would leave that up to the business owner to do whatever he needs to do to make sure that his staff is.
Okay, so, and I haven't read all of it, and I apologize. Is this going to require an inspection of each individual business?
No, not on the general business licenses. We do have currently licensed businesses like daycares, alcohol establishments, restaurants, and stuff like that do require fire marshal inspections, but we did not include that on the general business license.
So, Mr. Hammer out here, who's been in business since the Ark, he will not have to have an inspection of his property as long as it is up to code at one time.
Correct.
Do people living out of town, doing business in town, such as roofers, construction workers, et cetera, will they be required to register as well?
So roofers and construction workers, the business is required to have a contractor's license with the city as well. And so they're not required a general business license because they are already licensed. with
So if
the
you
city.
have a contractor's license, you don't have to have this.
Correct.
Okay. If you're a food service, so one of my food service people call me, if they've already paid a $400 fee for their food service license, will they be required to have an additional business license?
No.
Okay. Is there a requirement in this for them to submit a layout and/or a parking plan?
For the general business licenses?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
And
We require that on several of our other business licenses, so it was something that we just carried over into this one.
so again, if they've already been in business for a long time, are they going to have to go have a survey of their business?
No, it doesn't have to be a survey. It can be a hand-drawn sketch of, here's where, whatever I sell is located, here are the walls, here are the exit and emergencies.
And the purpose of that is?
It's a safety issue when we get to, in case of emergencies, we know the layout of the building, and we can tell the fire marshals and the fire department or the police if they have to enter the property, they're able to do that safely.
Okay, and that makes sense to me, so I like that. In some businesses that they don't have their individual parking, but maybe they're part of a community parking, or they're on C Avenue and they don't have their own specific parking, are they going to be required to?
So what we've done and what our intent is there is, they can go on Google and do just an overhead view on Google and print that out and go, here's my business and this is the parking lot that I
Okay,
share.
and the information we gather will be stored and used how?
So it's sent.
That specific information.
Okay, so that specific information is really just to make sure that our fire trucks and emergency vehicles have adequate access to the location, and if they can't get.
Avenue, here's what's there, here's where the people might be, here's where the hazardous materials might be, et cetera. Well, does that technology exist?
Yes, and we're working towards implementing that. We are in the process of
Okay.
implementing the new Tyler Gov system, which will include all of our business licenses and all of our building permits, and they will have access to all of that.
So when I send in my information, then if they need to come, they'll know where my hazardous materials are,
Yes.
where I might be, and they would be able to more efficiently address. And I see Chief Williams coming, so these are the major concerns that I've heard about, and I think I believe in them. I think they're good things, but I just wanted to clarify for those people who have asked me.
Go ahead,
We
Chief.
don't have the system in place today. We have the technology in place, and that is where we're working towards getting that data into we use a tablet version of something called TrueForce. Every truck has those in it, and then they have all the information, the turn-by-turn directions, everything, all the details of the call. The information will be gathered, we'll work with dispatch to get that uploaded into that. And it's not an overnight process, but that is ultimately where we're headed. We'll have to be at the firefighters' fingertips when they go to any address in town.
So this will benefit you and the ability to provide safety measures to the public.
Immensely, along with our personnel when they go out and do building inspections, and they'll be able to upload that information, we'll kind of keep that current, we'll constantly be building on that and building a better database for a safer future.
And so the fire department will then hopefully also know where any dangerous chemicals or stuff is within the business that they'll be able to be aware of. And so provide safety for our firefighters as well.
Yeah, it just allows us to do our job better for the
All
citizens.
right, awesome, thank you.
Council, other questions?
Is that enough?
Okay, a few more. Nonprofits?
So it does not exclude nonprofits. That is something that we can look at as we do more research and if you direct us to revise the code. It does exclude religious organizations.
Okay, did we talk about whether other communities require background checks on general business license?
No, we do not.
Do you know if they do?
I do not know if they do or not.
So, do we really need this, and what were we trying to fix? What wasn't working that we needed to do this?
So it's twofold. So the first side is that we wanted to have some more teeth or power to be able to enforce the rules on the businesses that were operating in town that we were currently licensing, and that we needed them to renew in a timely manner per our code. And then the second one is it's a safety issue. You know, we get calls all the time. Hey, so-and-so's moved into this location. Can we get a copy of their certificate of occupancy? Well, we don't have any record of that business moving in. And they're like, oh, well, they've been there for 2 years. So it's kind of trying to, so we know what businesses are where so that we can provide that information.
Playing field. For example, Mr. Hammer was brought up, and, you know, it's not fair for Mr. Hammer to be downtown paying a sales tax, collecting sales tax, when I can operate a clothing store out of my garage and maybe not.
So how
it's
do,
important to make sure that we know the businesses that are in our community.
so how does Norman deal with that? How does Edmond and Broken Arrow deal with that? Enid?
I would have to talk to the finance people specifically to see how they deal with it, but they do collect, I know they do collect that information.
That'll be interesting. Thank you.
So theoretically, we could not charge a fee and get the same information.
Yes.
Okay, that looks like all of the council questions, and so we'll move on to some audience participation of those that have in here. We have rules. There are 15-minute time limit, and you had to have filled out a form and turned it in before the meeting. Trent Dockstetter, please come up. You have 3 minutes. Mike Cornish will be next, then Dwight Tanner, then Tommy Simon.
I would just look at the forms, and it does appear that the inspection is required for all businesses.
Okay, Trent, you got to tell us who you are and where you live.
I'm Trent Dockstetter, my business at 1805 Cash Road.
Okay.
Tech Office Systems.
Thank you.
It appears that the inspection is required of all businesses, just looking at the form. Maybe I'm incorrect, but and actually, if you fill out all the cost for average business, it's $211 if you just have one business owner, but that's really not my main concern. I can understand the city needs to see if people have a valid reseller tax permit. Probably be good if they inspected that from time to time. I can see that. Need to know after hours emergency. I don't think necessarily knew who the owners are. Typically, after hours emergency is not going to necessarily be the owner, maybe a manager or whatever. But as far as the mandatory $50 inspection, you know, will such inspections require businesses to require everything up to current building codes, such as restrooms, electrical, so on and so forth, the minimum number of parking spaces? And then will grandfather zoning exemptions be nullified for long-established business locations? Will new zoning requirements be mandated to obtain or renew a license? And what guarantee is there that such collected data won't become a witch hunt list for future compliance regulations? And then it kind of seems like are we inventing a solution to a problem that doesn't exist? On the background checks, I think when I was talking to somebody, they were concerned about, what if there's a sex offender and so forth. There's already laws in place according to per the Oklahoma.gov website. Sex and violent offender registration unit maintains the state Oklahoma sex and violent offender registry. Offender information such as residence, employment, convictions, and other pertinent information is provided to the public and law enforcement agencies. And then on the, as far as who's collecting, the police are going to collect background information. A police officer can't even do a background request on, or look on somebody unless there's probable cause. What is the cause? Why are we collecting this data on businesses if there's no probable cause?
Thank you. Mike. All right, Mike, what's your name?
Mike Cornish. I have Cornish Properties in Lawton, Oklahoma. I'm glad that you brought up the scenario that Oklahoma City does not require a general license, nor does Tulsa require general license. I'm glad we're trying to move this city forward, but I think you're making it harder for people to do business now. We've already raised gas, water, trash services. If it's a money thing, let's figure out how to live within y'all's $120 million budget. It was 80 million, so now it's 120, and we need to maybe cut back on some of all these executive surveys of the lakes and executive surveys of the mall, and we're spread out. Let's just do basic good business. As far as a background check, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. I don't think that's a good idea, but that's my opinion. It's got to where you can't ask hardly any questions of anybody when you're trying to get a feel for the customer. And of course, I just think it's an overreach. That's all I've got to say. We could go on and on, but
Hi. Dwight Tanner. I saw Dwight Tanner. Oh, here he comes. Tommy, you'll be next if you want to go ahead. You don't want to? Okay. Hi, Dwight. What's your name? I see that. I love Lawton Fort Zilpan.
Mayor, council, city staff, I sincerely say thank you for your service to the community. I'm Dwight Tanner, Jr. I live at 612 Northwest Bell.
Okay, thank you.
I've been a resident of Lawton since 1977, a small business owner, I emphasize small, since 1990. In 2022, it was predicted that 2 out of 3 small businesses would fail due to the slowing economy. The pandemic, high inflation, it's taking its toll, and it's still taking its toll. I just want to remind myself and others, what does small business do for the U.S. economy and for the local economy? Number one thing they do is they provide 50% of all the jobs. Another thing that small business does here locally is we help keep these commercial properties occupied. And when these commercial properties are occupied, sales tax is collected. and paid to the city. When these commercial properties are occupied, water bills are turned on, and water revenue is paid to the city. When these commercial properties are occupied, they get the utilities turned on, the gas, the electric, the phone. Franchise taxes are collected and paid to the city. The point I'm trying to make, these are three very crucial revenue sources for the city. And I know that the council is concerned about small business, that you want to create policy that supports small business. That's why we're addressing this issue right now. So I encourage the council to continue to create policy that supports small business, not policy that overburdens small business, not policy that over-regulates small business, and most importantly, not policy that is an infringement on a citizen's right. So I encourage you, I know I've spoken to some of you about it, and I know you have a heart to support the small business. Let's keep the jobs. Let's keep the commercial property rented. Let's keep the water bills on. Let's keep the franchise fees coming in. Continue to create policy that supports small business. God bless you.
All right, thank you, Dwight. Okay, so now's our opportunity to make comments. Council? I would like to say that I really feel like the information given to the council wasn't the way it turned out. I'm not sure what the council would have voted on had they had the information that they have today. I'm not sure the background check does anything when it doesn't matter about your employees, and I think we need employers of second chance. I think there's a lot of questions that are left to interpretation, such as nonprofits. Because if I read the ordinance, I can read that nonprofits have to do it. But I don't think that was the intent. I think at the end of the day, the council is dependent upon the staff to give them all of the information. It was never mentioned about the background check. It was never mentioned about the admin fee. And there's another one of those interpretation things. And there was one other thing, the anomaly. It apparently is not an anomaly. So whatever the council does, I hope at a minimum, you will ask the staff to gather information to bring back. And I like to check the 3 cities just bigger than us, the 3 cities just lower than us. I'm not too concerned with Bottersville because they're not in those 6. But those 6 are the most important to me. What are they doing? And they all appear, from what I saw, which doesn't mean I saw everything, but from what I saw, they appear to have what we had before. And if what we were trying to fix was increase the penalty on the individuals that we were already licensing for not renewing their license, I'm not sure why we didn't just do that. But those are my thoughts. I wasn't expecting that. We'll start down there with Mr. Warren.
Well, this is going to make my job a lot easier because in my mind, the origination of this was to solve some problems that business owners had called me about. I'm sure they've called others about, and citizens have called about, people not doing what they're supposed to be doing and us not knowing what's going on. I thought, my original thought was that there would have been an inspection because that's what made sense to me, because if you've got, and this is just an example, but if you've got a guy next door to you, whether you live in a house or whether you live in whether it's your business, and the guy next door's got a machine shop, and business is going down, so he decides to start selling acetylene and oxygen, and he just does that. Fire department doesn't know. How are they gonna know? There's no inspection. Nobody's gonna go there and look to see if he's doing the same thing this year that he said he was doing last year. So, if we're not gonna be inspect, then I don't understand why we're even doing it. Because it's not accomplishing anything. It's not solving that person's problem that calls me and wants to know why the person next door has got their garage built into a hair salon and there's 6 chairs in there and they can't park in their driveway because there's people parking in their driveway to get their hair done. If we're not gonna inspect, then there's no purpose in even doing it. I mean, why would we even have a license if we're just gonna say, yeah, they've got a license, they're doing something over there, we're not really sure what it is, but, so I guess that's, it really does make my job easier, because when somebody calls me and says, hey, Billy Bob next door's doing something he's not supposed to, I said, well, okay. What do you want me to do about it? Because the citizens of Lawton said they don't care. And that's cool with me, I don't have a problem with it. But I can tell you that as a general rule, business licenses are the norm, or else I wouldn't be getting a form probably twice a month from entities that say, what is your resale number? What is your local business number? What's your license number? So somebody's got a license number. And I don't have a problem with not having them, but I think if we're gonna have them, then they need to have some purpose, and we need to have a reason to have that license. So maybe we do need to rework the whole thing, because the rest of that is, if we're gonna inspect, then we have to pay that person to go and inspect. And if we're gonna pay that person to go and inspect, it's only fair for the business that's involved to pay that. It's not fair for the lady that lives next door to me to have to get to pay to get that business inspected. So, none of this happens in a vacuum. We've got complaints, we've got, so if there's a solution, it's not just doing it or not doing it. We have to accept the results of whatever it is. If we don't inspect and we just let businesses do whatever they want to do, wherever they want to do it, we have to be willing to live with those results. It's just that simple. And if we're going to inspect and if we're going to charge that, then the business has got to be the one that pays the cost of the inspection and things of that nature. So maybe we do need to go rework it, but either way, somebody's not going to be happy. I can tell you that right now.
I echo what you said, Mayor, a little earlier, and as I was listening to this and was reminded that the reason why this initiated or part of it was because of those businesses that are not renewing. To me, and maybe I'm missing it, but it doesn't sound like we've even addressed that. So I think as we're looking at that, I think one of the things that we need to address or staff to look at a solution for that. Because it seems like, from that, other things have come up, but we're still not addressing that issue. So that doesn't mean that every business is not renewing their license, but there needs to be something done about that.
I appreciate the 90-day that Charlotte told us about, but I really don't believe this can be fixed in 90 days. There's a lot of problems with it. May I make a motion at this time? Okay. can't be fixed in 90 days, and I think I'll just say it, because Mike Cornish inspired me. I think the city's trying to make money off of this. That's not my motion yet. Mayor, my motion is to rescind and strike all the language and provisions in ordinance 22-16 that relate to the new general business license. And also, if anybody's paid this fee already, we should seek out to give them their money back.
Okay, I'm going to get you to repeat your motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
My motion is to rescind and strike all of the language and provisions in ordinance 22-16 that relate to this new general business license, and also refund any money collected for the general business license if anybody's bought one so far.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second. And we do have a second. Discussion or debate. Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Mayor. As everybody should know that has listened to me, I'm really into the United States, the Bill of Rights, and those things that protect our freedoms. And bureaucracy, which I am a part of, is usually the thing that oversteps those boundaries. With that said, I went and looked at Oklahoma City. It's a bigger city than us, and took a look at it. And they have business license there, but it was like 38, only 38 businesses, and they were businesses like airports, massage parlors, those things of those nature that you probably need to check. I mean, you got to check and balance the bad guys. But I don't think that anybody in this room is a bad guy. They're just trying to make money and live in a capitalistic system that provides opportunity to be creative and do the things that they need to do to make money for their families and provide life in a community that we all live in. And we all have to live in this together. I appreciate everybody coming out today. I had some people call me about this particular policy, and I was confused thinking about it. I mean, it just didn't make a lot of stuff just didn't make any sense to me. I was in the military. I have a top secret clearance. If do I need to be checked again by the city of Lawton? And I'm not making fun of it. I mean, I'm really trying to put this together. I think, as I said, I think there's a reason for this. Charlotte mentioned it, but I think that it definitely needs to be reworked as far. I mean, like I said, maybe we ought to pick some of the businesses that we do need to check, because there are businesses that you guys don't want beside you either, and there has to be some checks and balances, but we got to look at the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. I looked at the fees in Oklahoma City. They were like $30, $50, different things. But like I said, they seem to address things that businesses you probably wouldn't want beside. Who would want an airport beside them, or a heliport, or a massage parlor? You follow? And I'm not knocking any of those. I think those are all needful, but who would really want those beside them while they're conducting business? Someone told me they have 8 businesses. So are they going to get a background check for each one of those businesses? I mean, that's, you know what I'm saying? There's just some reworking that I think is important. But I think the thing that really bothers me the most is infringement on privacy. Because I don't think that well, I don't want the city to know everything I'm doing and to go through my personal business. I mean, that's a public entity, and I just don't think that's any of the city's business. There are some that know what I do. There are some. there are some that know what I do, and I would clearly, when I took the office, I said I would tell you, any of you. So if you want to come up personally, I'll confess my sin to each one of you, but I'm not going to do it publicly. I'm trying to be concise. I probably use more than my. I always make bullet points for myself, but I'm just too talkative, I guess. Shouldn't have had that coffee this morning. Nonetheless, I think everybody kind of gets my point, and I'm one to say that I agree with the motion that was made. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, but we have a legal correction.
Councilman Fortenbaugh, will you accept friendly amendment?
As long as we accomplish the same thing.
Okay, so replace the word repeal with rescind that you initially used. And can you state the sections that you specifically want repealed?
Sure.
Okay.
I thought I said rescind. So my motion is to rescind and
repeal?
Repeal and strike all provisions and language in ordinance 22-16 that created section 7-1-1-100, Article 7.1.1, Division 7.1, Chapter 7, Lawton City Code, 2015, that relate to the general business license, and refund any monies collected for general business licenses. I don't know how I would find all those numbered things I just read off, but that's my motion.
Okay, and who made the second? Do you agree with the friendly amendment? Okay, we're good to go, and you have another announcement?
So just so, make sure everybody's on the same sheet of music, this just affects the general business license, not the entire, like all of the business licenses.
Yeah, just the general,
Okay.
like I specified in my motion.
I want to thank Councilman Moore and Councilman Fortenbaugh, because I think that's, they always bring wisdom that I don't think about when they speak. And so from that stand, I want to thank everyone that came here today. And I've had phone calls from many of you, and I thank you for your input. This is the way government should work. And I mostly agree with this. I do believe that the intent that we want to provide a safer community and improve our ability to provide services via our fire department and other things is a valid point. However, this was a boondoggle, and we apologize. We're going to fix it, and we may come back in the future with something that's more amenable, but this is an excellent solution to this, I believe. So, but thank you again for your input and your decorum here today. That was very important.
Well, I too, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I really didn't realize, because when it was presented to us, I thought, well, this is pretty simple. We need to know who's doing business in our city, and, you know, that's all there is to it. But when I got a call from a constituent, and I tried to explain it to the constituent, I thought, this is crazy. It makes no sense. I don't like it. So, and I'm sorry I wasn't ahead of that. I mean, I feel like I should have investigated that more, but when it was presented to us that evening or that council meeting, I had no idea what it encompassed. So I'm glad we're looking at this. I feel like we're on the right road now to correcting it. Appreciate the citizens. We do need to hear from you.
Now, do we have any more comments or debate? Please vote. I didn't hear. And the motion carries 6-0. So it is repealed. Now, I think we took care of the issue, but we didn't take care of the problem. And the problem is that the council did not have complete and accurate information. And I think probably we can take care of that with some policy, but we need to think through it. But I think we need to have a policy council that the information brought, when other cities are brought up, it needs to be documented. And there's got to be some way for us to be secure in having complete and accurate information. We count on that to make decisions. And I know we're supposed to read everything, but I also know that we don't have a lot of time to get it read, so it doesn't happen. And we count on that. The world's built that way. The world's built that way, that the decision makers get information. Joe Time.
Yes, sir. Questions that y'all, first of all, I'm going to start with questions that y'all have.
So I do have questions. The agenda item commentary on this said 15%, but there are several items, and we all received a highlighted copy that had several items that were over 15%. That too, from the agenda item commentary, we couldn't see. Plus, those weren't highlighted, so we had no way to find them. First of all, I doubt that anybody went through this book of fees. And so once again, we find ourselves making a decision based on what's in the agenda item commentary. You weren't allowed to make a presentation. I watched the video. The motion was made as soon as you walked up.
Mr. Mayor,
But we have,
can we wait just a moment till the, because I can't hear very well.
yeah. That work for you? Yeah. So I'll start over. The agenda item commentary said 15%. All of the discussion that I remember had been 15%, except I said, and I think others did too, that any fee that does not that is being supplemented, that is not enough to deliver the service that it's charging for, needs to be increased. But we were told that would come back later. There wasn't time to do it before the budget, and that we were going to do a 15% across the board. Many of these, I don't know, 20 or 30, are more than 15%.
Again, the document was a collaborative effort between all of our department heads. We did take into account where we could the fees that, like you'd mentioned, that are basically there to support a service. Those may have been more than 15%. I'm running through it after I got the agenda item on, yesterday, and because I tried to go through the book after I got, after everybody turned their stuff into me, or to my department, and I spot checked it. Everything I was spot checking was 15%. Same thing as I was doing previously to this meeting. I'm just running through the book, looking at different fees, where are we at, and I don't guess I hit the 20 or so that you are referring to. I have not gone through them line by line. I will do that. I've got that. I produced that. So yeah, I've got that.
The ones that were over 15%, we might have missed a few, but they're highlighted.
I don't know that I got that, no.
To make it easy for you to
I
find.
don't know that I got that.
Okay, well, we'll get you one.
I've got what's in the agenda. And I've got what was in my office.
Mm-hmm.
And no, sir, I do not have this one. Okay, if I'm looking through here and I just opened it up to the first page, I found is 57. A lot of these fees, yes, went way above 15%. But those are the fees for sewer lines and sewer treatments that we have to go through. That's the fee level that would be needed to support that categorical pollutant discharge, for example. Went from $500 to $8,000. That was the fee that the director at that department would have said that is needed to support that operation. And I would have to leave it to them to explain why that is. I know
Really,
Rusty can.
really, I'm not interested in explanation why you need more money on a particular fee. I'm interested, for me, others might be, I'm interested in explanation why the AIC says 15% and doesn't define what's really in here. We depend on the AIC for a general overview, and it doesn't mention that others are more than that. It makes it difficult for us to make decisions. We make decisions based on that.
I understand that.
Mayor,
I understand that.
you can just place that one all on me. We used a collaborative tool called Microsoft Teams. This was the first time that this fee schedule had been gone through from top to bottom. We used a collaborative tool because there were so many departments input into it. Back and forth, mistakes were made apparently, as pointed out here. For example, the business license was put in, or should have been put in at $100. Somewhere along the line, it got adjusted up 15%. I understood during our budget conversations, and mistakenly, it looks as though it was not supposed to go in there, but come back at a later date, that services rendered, the cost of those services should be included in the fee schedule. And that's how we put it together. So in that aspect, you can blame that all on me because I missed that as well.
Part of that.
One of the things Rusty just reminded me of also is that we did have a fee committee meeting concerning these, and we did go through all of these fees in that fee committee meeting.
That's what I was going to say, is during the fee committee meeting, we went through and talked about, I don't know if it was all of them, but almost all of these. And my memory is that the vast majority of them were the fact that we were trying to get to cost to provide the service. And a good example might be the fees for audio recordings of, or maybe a better one would be fire, when somebody comes in and asks for a list of all the fire runs for the last 6 months. Well, in order to get even close to that, we changed it to a certain charge for a half hour, and then each half hour after that it takes to compile that list, because it's not just simply going in and grabbing if there's a specific group of information that people want. I was trying to find that one.
And I think to address your specific question about why did the AIC not go into this and explain that there are some differences other than 15%. I wrote the AIC. I described the document in general, and generally, all fees went up 15%. There are some differences. There are some that are very minute. There are some that are large. And should those have been brought out to your attention? Probably so. I'm not going to deny that. But in trying to get the information to you, I inadvertently left that information out.
Okay, does anybody have comments, Mr. Harris?
Yeah, I want to say, Mr. Warren, I remember also us discussing, I thought I remembered us discussing, like, the agenda packet, we were for a whole agenda packet, we were charging 25 cents.
That's
for the
correct.
whole, and so we went up to $8.96, which is closer to our actual cost of producing that. So I remember something about that, I just don't remember all of it, so.
And I think, to your point, there are some differences. There were some things that went through to make it where it was not a cost to the city to provide information, such as agenda packets or whatever it may be. But again, to your point, the AIC did not say that.
Mrs. Hankins?
I was on that committee, and I remember the same thing that Councilman Warren said, is some of them didn't cover the cost at all or close. This is the packet that we went over in a short meeting. So there's bound to have been, at least with my number skill. But that is definitely what I remember. Some of them didn't cover the cost, so it probably would have not been 15%, would have been more.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fortenbaugh.
Joe Don, I was just going through this, and when you look at, on page 24, it lists all the marijuana dispensary type of fees.
Yes?
Do you know why those went up so much?
Those went up to mimic state law. State law allows a certain level of fee, and those went up to mimic state laws.
But were we having a problem with covering our costs with the old fee? It's quite a huge increase.
That, I can't, that I'm gonna have to defer to Charlotte to. I do not know.
Mr. Fortenbaugh, it's my recommendation of that conversation, because medical marijuana establishments were discussed specifically, and the state maximum limit was discussed specifically, and council did authorize the maximum amount by state. So I know that one was discussed specifically, and if I could, a little bit more, the committee, we went through every page and went through and scanned all of those items, and as was asked or directed, we did adjust them to provide or cover the cost of said service. There were, like I said, mistakes when, and I'm not talking gross errors as in intentionally, but as we went back through the document and collaborated all that material and pulled it together, you know, community services may have put in the $100 fee as it was intended, but then Joe Don's admin might have increased it by 15% because he asked him to look at it because it was the last document. So that's how that 100 went to 115. I know that for a fact. So when you make a big change like that, we made some mistakes. We missed some areas.
That's not really my question, though. I was just wondering about the cost of
And again,
marijuana.
Charlotte to discuss the
Okay.
mechanics behind the marijuana ordinances.
So this was another one that was a brand-new ordinance that was brought to you in June as well. We did not have medical marijuana business licenses prior to this. I can tell you that when I originally drafted the code, the fees were a lot less and very on par with our existing alcoholic establishments. And they were tiered, with the higher tier being the processing, so it was a more expensive license, and I tiered it down. And then the previous community services director changed it up to the $2,500 apiece.
That action was taken on a separate resolution, and I do remember the fee of $2,500 being specifically discussed.
It was Mr.,
No, I remember it too. I'm trying to relate what's generally a $2,500 annual fee to what it cost us to manage the medical marijuana stuff.
I believe that with the original fees, it would have covered our costs.
Mr. Warren.
Oh, I was just going to mention, I just remembered that we actually, council on the floor changed those amounts to what's shown here on the sheet. I don't remember what meeting that was, but we actually had a meeting where the council voted to increase those fees.
Those fees were actually increased in a separate agenda item. I watched it last night. Ms. Johnson, did you want to say anything? Okay. Mr. Harris?
No, Mr. Warren said what I was going to say.
Okay. All right. So my deal about this has nothing to do with the fees. I believe fees should cover the cost of the service, that the citizen should not supplement what a fee is supposed to cover. So I don't have a problem with that. But the problem I do have is getting calls about fees, and they go up, and I look back at the agenda item commentary, and it says 15%. So that's similar to the problem we had on the other one. If the council's fine with what they've got, they're fine. I'm going to bring back some kind of a council policy that hopefully the council will accept, that maybe puts a little more definition into what we want on the agenda item commentary.
I was going to
Okay?
say, Mayor, maybe down at the bottom where it, I don't remember, don't have it in front of me, but it normally says recommended action. Maybe above that, we have a synopsis of, on this one, would be raise the majority or whatever, 15% with the exceptions of the following, and maybe list those exceptions so that you don't have to read 66 pages.
Right.
You can just see that 100 of them are 15% and 20 of them are more.
And I think it could have been taken care of in the background if it would have been, you know, if they know you want all important information, and I don't know, we'll let the lawyer figure out the words, but, Mr. Hampton?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Sometimes it's very cumbersome, and I think cumbersome for the citizens to understand. There are certainly a whole lot of departments in here, and I'm always interested in breaking things down into sections or subsections where it's more easily digestible for the council as well as any of the citizens that want to mull through 63 pages. And I think that this comment is really just to say that sometimes things are more manageable when we break them down into smaller packets. I'm going to be thinking about that a little bit to maybe augment some of what the mayor's saying as far as how we deal with this information. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, well, I don't think this requires any action unless somebody's wanting to change amounts. And with that, unless somebody wants to say something, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Hampton. Yes. Fortenbaugh. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Warren. Yes. Hankins.